Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1221, written by The Colonel Clink, When Dutch is Downloaded into Your Mind. So, I was once at McDonald's with my best friend, who was a girl from Holland. Both her parents were Dutch, and she was born there but moved to America quite young. We had just sat down to start eating when the father asked, "Does anyone know where the straws are?" Knowing what the straws were, and knowing they were freely paying for my meal, I quickly shot up and grabbed a straw for the father. "Here you are," I added. I then realized that they were sitting staring at me like I was an alien. Now I only know how to speak English and bad English, but apparently the father made this request completely in Dutch. But I would swear on a painful death that I 100% clearly heard the request made in English. Not only that, the translation is completely different, so it was not as if I picked up the body language and my mind did the rest of the translating, which only further confused them and me to this day. Case notes file 1221. When Dutch is downloaded into your mind. So our subconscious minds are very powerful, feeding into our perception of reality. It's like when Morpheus asked Neo, "What is real?" Signals from our brain decoded in a specific pattern to produce our sentient perception of reality. I think there's another layer with the soul connected, which gives us free will. But the sentience itself, it's all machinations, processes in the brain, synapses, connections. Can it be altered? I think so. Hell yeah. The subconscious is doing that all the time itself. Can I believe that your brain filled in the gaps of what it expected the father to have meant, even if it's not a perfect translation of what he said? I can believe that, yeah. The real question is if some external force aided your brain. If we can imagine the ether all around us, filled to the brim with information. Our subconscious is like a game of hungry hippo, trying to desperately collect all the balls of knowledge. Sometimes, one of those balls has more information than other ones. However, they're fickle and they don't last. You see that all the times with these glitches where people understand a language, they can sometimes even speak it, but only momentarily, and then that knowledge just gone. Case file number 1222, written by Rob Zombie 33, The Mysterious Butt of a Lost Crush. I was with my parents, staying over for the weekend, and woke up in the morning with the desire to creep on an old classmate on Facebook. There was a girl I kind of liked in band class who was a grade below me who my brother's friends knew, but I never talked to her. I decided to look her up in addition to others on Facebook to see what she was like now several years on. We graduated from a large high school in the suburbs, and I hadn't thought much of her since I graduated. A few minutes after seeing her page, the phone at my parents' house rings. I lazily walked over to their phone to see if my parents or brother were phoning. I pick it up and check the caller ID, and in horror I freeze as I read her name on the display. I immediately begin to think I've done something in error unbeknownst to me while on her Facebook page, which alerted her to my creeping and triggered her call. I cannot answer it. I verify the number on the caller ID with Facebook to see it is indeed her and sit in shock, dumbstruck about how this unlikely event occurred and wondered the reason for it. My brother arrived at my parents a little later, and I told him who called. He actually had her number on his cell, and he sent her a text asking why she was calling my parents' place. She responds back that she didn't place a call, but that it was an accidental butt dial. Weird. Case notes file 1222, The Mysterious Butt from a Lost Crush. I hope you followed up on this one. I don't think we have a single soulmate exactly, but I do think there are multiple possible partnerships of high potential. Pairings that would yield extremely fruitful and happy lives. In great children, great families, marriages, all that. White picket fence. Sometimes the universe gives us a nudge in the direction, I think. I don't think these are accidental. It's that adage of not believing coincidences. Well, I do to an extent, but sometimes coincidences are so crazy hopped up on steroids that you just can't ignore them. I don't think, in this case, treating this one as a coincidence is quite logical. It's too precise. Definitely hope you acted on that one. Case file number 1223, written by Hippo717. I was lost in someone else's mind. I have never had any psychic energy. I've never seen a ghost. Hell, I'm not even particularly intuitive with body language. So imagine my surprise when this happened. I was about 25. I was bartending at night and got home at about 2:30 a.m. I hated smelling like stale beer, so I took showers before going to bed. On this night, I sat down on the edge of my bed to take off my shoes. I sat. I did not lay down or recline. I didn't go to sleep or close my eyes. With no warning, I was in another person's mind or body or memory. I was walking down a hallway, like a corridor, bad fluorescent lights above, and a cop was walking with me, escorting me. He was wearing a uniform, not a suit and tie. We got toward the end of the hallway and turned right to walk through double doors. We entered a morgue, and there was a doctor inside the room with a body and a sheet over it. There were other stainless steel tables and lots of medical equipment, but only one body. The lighting was almost putrid, like it had a green or yellow filter on it. No one spoke, but somehow I was aware of the fact that I had to identify the body. The doctor pulled the sheet down and showed a young man between 20 and 25. I was only 25 at the time this happened, but somehow I knew this young man was my son. I started screaming my freaking head off. I started hitting the cop with my purse. I tried to hit the doctor. I screamed it was their fault my son was dead. The doctor wrapped his arms around me from behind, like a bear hug, and then it was over. The whole thing was less than 90 seconds. When I came back to my own body, I was in the same position, sitting, not laying down, on my bed, and my shoes were still on. My heart rate was through the roof. My throat was sore from screaming, but I hadn't made a sound. I never woke up my roommates. I have never experienced anything like that before or since. I didn't sleep for 2 days. I don't know who the woman was, the body I was inhabiting. I don't know if I saw her past, her present, or her future. But it felt like I was an interloper, like I was seeing something that wasn't mine to see. If that's what psychic energy is, frick it, I don't want it. Case notes for file 1223. I was lost in someone else's mind. So if we have souls, and they are what enable our sentience to connect to a player in the simulation, the body, then does beg the question, does each physical body have a limit of one soul connected? I don't think so, because we can be possessed, so one soul suppresses the other. So multiple souls interface with the same body, perhaps intermingling together sometimes, when it's not a possession. In this case, it wasn't a possession. It was like you were there. You were her, but mingled with her own soul. So neither felt different. I assume during the 90-second event, you felt like it was almost normal. You were her, with the souls intermingled. It's just energy layered on top of each other, like yarn twirling on itself, and then it forms a rope, and it's made of different individual threads, but they can mingle together and then disconnect eventually. In this case, it didn't take very long. I think this is very possible, but it doesn't explain why it happened to you randomly at that moment. Was that your own ability that just suddenly happened? I wouldn't even call it an ability if it was from your end, because you didn't activate it. It just was something that happened, and never happened since or before. Would I want that to happen? It's almost like really, it would be like a video game then, or like a movie. But more like a video game, because it sounded like you still were in some form of control, or at least felt like you were. Now, time for the quote of the day. The most remarkable thing about my mother is that for 30 years, she served the family nothing but leftovers. The original meal was never found. Calvin Trillin. Yes, my mother did the same. Apparently, there were no original meals, they were just leftovers. The meals materialized as leftovers. I love this quote. Mother's cooking, nothing like it, huh? I do miss mine. Try to replicate it as best as I can. Never quite there, but maybe close. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.